Hello, welcome to Electrical Traction Part 4. In this section, first we are going to discuss about the traction substation. The traction substation, you can see it receives 132 kV, two feeders of 132 kV, and they are connected here to the primary of the traction transformer. So the primary side of the traction transformer has 132 kV, and the secondary side of this transformer, traction transformer, the voltage is stepped down to 25 kilovolts. Now there are two transformers here, transformer 1 and transformer 2, and normally one transformer is under operation, this section, but now if this transformer fails, then this is in the standby mode. If this transformer fails, then you can switch on the supply through the second transformer. After that, the 25 kV AC is passed through. You have two circuit breakers. One, this is called as a transformer circuit breaker, and I means they are the interrupters. And another type of circuit breaker you have here is called as a line circuit breaker. So that is a traction substation, which includes the traction transformer, the two types of circuit breakers, the transformer circuit breaker, line circuit breaker, and the interrupter. Now, what is the difference between the circuit breaker and an interrupter? The circuit breakers will trip in case of fault, but the interrupters, they will not trip in case of fault condition. They are acting like just on-off switching devices, which can be operated from the remote control center. Now, the 25 kV AC, now these two feeders, that is the output of the traction substation, they will now go to what is called as a 25 kV feeding post, and this feeding post is located on a tower near the railway track. Here the complete description of the traction substation is given. So the two transformers which are there, they have a rating of 10 or 12.5 MVA, 132 by 25 kV, and the traction transformer, as you can see, is designed with Class A insulation, and the transformers are provided with standard accessories such as conservator tank, bucklers, relay, breather, oil level indicator, drain valve, gauge, dual gauge thermometer, relief pipe, and two thermostats to indicate the oil temperature rise. Now, one thermostat is meant to give the alarm indication, while the other one is used for tripping of the circuit breaker in case of excessive temperature rise. The circuit breakers, we can see the transformer circuit breaker that is there is intended to trip on the occurrence of internal fault within the transformer, and the rating of the circuit breaker is 750 amperes at 25 kV, and the carrying capacity is 500 MVA. But the line circuit breakers which are there, the line circuit breakers, they are provided to trip in case of fault in the overhead equipment. So two types of circuit breakers, transformer circuit breaker, which trips in case of internal fault within the transformer, and then the line circuit breaker, which trips in case of the fault in the overhead equipment. And the third important equipment of traction substation is the interrupter. It is a non-automatic type circuit breaker, which can be operated from the remote control centers. So they are provided in the feeding, subsectioning, and the paralleling post also. Topic there is the 25 kV feeding post. Now the 25 kV feeders, two 25 kV feeders from the traction substation, they come to this feeding post here. Again, in this feeding post you have the interrupter, circuit breakers, and bus coupler now here. So if this particular feeder, there is a failure, you can switch on the bus coupler, so the supply from this LD feeder through the bus coupler can come to this part. So the bus coupler provides a redundancy as far as the 25 kV AC supply is concerned. Now again, here you can see that you have the up track as well as the down track. So the up track receives the supply again through the interrupter, circuit breaker, and another interrupter here, and the down track also receives the supply from interrupter, circuit breaker, and interrupter here. The two subsections, they are separated by what is called as an insulating overlap. We have the lightning arresters here, which basically provide protection against the lightning strokes. So that is all about the feeding post. In the feeding post, you find that you also have what is an auxiliary transformer. So that auxiliary transformer is also there. The description of all these items or equipments which are there in the feeding post, it is given in my next slide. You can see the 25 kV feeding post, which consists of the circuit breakers and interrupters. Now the auxiliary transformer that is shown there in the feeding post, basically the primary side voltage is 25 kV and the secondary side it is stepped down to 230 kV and the rating is 10 kVA. Now this auxiliary transformer, which is also installed for the 230 volt supply, and where this 230 volt supply is used, it is used for the charging the batteries, and the batteries are installed basically for providing uninterrupted power supply for the remote control equipments or the signaling and the lighting circuits that you have in electric traction. So the feeding post. Next we have the sectioning and the paralleling post. Now in the sectioning and the paralleling post, we have one important item or equipment which is called as a neutral section. The significance of the neutral section is given in this slide. Now at the feeding post, power supplied by three-phase system is distributed in such a way that the loading of all the three phases remains almost the same. As different sections fed by different substations work on different phases, a neutral section is provided approximately in the middle of the two feeding posts. The purpose of providing neutral section is to isolate the two sections supplied by different phases. Thus, the pantograph of the locomotive does not bridge two different live phases of 25 kV supply while passing from one section to another. The neutral section, which is a small length of the overhead equipment, is insulated from both the sides and is not connected to any source of power supply. Its main function is to allow physically smooth and electrically sparkless passage of pantograph from one section to the other. The neutral section is positioned in front of the sectioning and the paralleling post. So what are the requirements as far as the neutral section is concerned? Neutral section should be located far away from the stopping signal so that the train can be picked up, or the train can pick up enough momentum to enable it to coast through the neutral section without difficulty, because there is no power supply in the neutral section. Neutral section should be neither located on up gradient nor on curves, because neutral section has to be negotiated in power off condition. It can be located on down gradient in case of single track or straight level section in case of multi-track. It is essential that the length of the neutral section should be as small as possible. So when pantographs at the extreme ends of multiple head trains are raised, they are about 40 meters apart. Therefore, the minimum length of the neutral section adopted by Indian Railways is very important. The minimum length of the neutral section adopted by Indian Railways is 41 meters. This is the single line diagram of the sectioning and the paralleling post. We can see here we have the up track and this is the down track. Now the three lines that we show here is basically the neutral section. The neutral section, on the right hand side of this neutral section, you'll find that this is, you can say, the section 2. And on the left hand side of the neutral section, you will find what's called as section 1. Now the section 2 on the right hand side of the neutral section is again divided into subsections by this, what is called as the insulating overlap. The insulating overlap, generally they are provided with a bypass switch which is called as the manually operated isolators. Now these manually operated isolators, they are generally on, so the supply from this subsection through this manually operated isolator which is on comes to the next section. Now if you want to carry out some maintenance, say in this part of the subsection, then what you can do is you can switch off this manually operated isolator. You can put it in off condition. So when you do that, on this side also and this side also, maybe if you have a manually operated isolator here, so when you switch off the manually operated isolators, to supply to this subsection becomes off, so you can carry out whatever the maintenance or the servicing is there, and after the servicing or maintenance is over in this particular subsection, again you can put this manually operated isolators on. So when this is made on, the supply from this subsection through this manually operated isolator which is made on now is made available to the adjacent subsection. Now, as I said, the right hand side of this neutral section you can call it section 2, which is divided into subsections. uh, by providing these insulating overlaps. On the left hand side of the neutral section, you also have another section, that's section 1C. Now this section, which is on the right hand side of the neutral section, say if I call it section 2, it is provided with the supply by this feeding post. And similarly, on the left hand side of this neutral section, section 1 that is there, it will be provided with power supply by another feeding post which is there on the left hand side of this neutral section. Now why I'm trying to explain you is what is the importance of this bridging interrupter here that is shown here. Now for example, if this feeding post, there is a failure, and because of which there is a power supply failure in this section which is on the right hand side of the neutral section, but the supply on the left hand side of the neutral section is healthy. So what you can do is you can route this supply from the healthy section to the unhealthy section here. How? So the supply here is healthy, so this is supply from here will come, the interrupter is on, the bridging interrupter will be made on here. So from here again this is also on, so the supply from there it comes here in this way. This isolator switch is on, so it will come here. So now you can see the supply has come to this subsection. Now from here again it will go here, and from here this interrupter is on, this bridging interrupter is also made on, interrupter is also on, so supply comes to this section. Again this manual operated isolator is on, so supply comes to this subsection. So what happens is the meaning of the bridging interrupter is that it bridges the two adjacent sections. So if a supply to this right hand side of the neutral section fails, then you can restore the supply to this section on the right hand side of the neutral section from the adjacent section. So in this way, the supply from the adjacent section where it is healthy, it will come this way, from here through this manually operated switch, through here, from here, this all the bridging interrupter is made on, the interrupters are on in this way. So you can bring the supply from the healthy section here on the left hand side of the neutral section, and you can bring it back to this section where the supply had failed. Similarly, whatever I have explained for the up track, that is also true for the down track here. So supply will come in this way from the healthier section to the manually operated switch in this way. So you can see the bridging interrupter. The bridging interrupter is generally kept off, and it is made on only during the emergency condition when a particular section supply fails because of the failure of the feeding post. So the significance of the bridging interrupter, as the name suggests, bridging interrupter, it bridges the two adjacent sections, the section that is there on the right hand side of the neutral section and the section that is there on the left hand side of the neutral section. It bridges the two adjacent sections, and when this bridging of the two adjacent sections is necessary, when the supply in one section is healthy and on supply on the other side of the section is not healthy. So in that condition you can put these bridging interrupters on, and you can bridge the two adjacent sections. Now what is the importance of the paralleling interrupter? It is basically there which paralleling the two tracks, that is up track and the down. Now for example, generally this paralleling interrupter is in off condition, but now you find that the supply to the down track has failed for some reason or the other, but the supply to the up track is healthy. So what you do is, in that case, you put this paralleling interrupter on. So if supply from the healthy up track comes here, the interrupter is on, the paralleling interrupter is made on, interrupter is on. So from here now the supply is restored to the down track where supply had failed. So other way also it is true. If this side supply fails on the up track and the down track supply is healthy, again you will put the parallel interrupter on. So the supply from the down track which was healthy comes here, from here the interrupter is made on, parallel interrupter is on, the interrupter is on, and now the supply to this up track where it had failed, it is restored. We get the supply from the down track where it was healthy. So in this way, so paralleling interrupter basically to parallel the two tracks, and it is made on when you want to restore the supply from one track to the other. And bridging interrupter, as the name suggests, it bridges the two sections, such that supply from the healthier section can be brought back to the supply to the adjacent section where the supply had failed. So this is all you can see as far as, and you can see again the lightning arresters are there to provide the protection against the lightning strokes. So The sectioning and the paralleling post, it is basically present between two feeding posts, and it consists of interrupters, circuit breakers, isolators, lightning arresters, the insulating overlaps, and main important is the bridging interrupter and the paralleling interrupter. So we have discussed in detail here about the sectioning, and so all this explanation, whatever I have told you, is given in this slide here. Lastly, again here, you'll find that if you have a three-phase supply, it's R, Y, B here, and supply as far as this. Now these are the neutral sections here. So on this side you have one section, this side you have another section, and this side you have the third section. So three sections here: section 1, section 2, section 3 for the up track. Similarly, section 1, section 2, and section 3 for the down track. So the section 1 of the up track and the down track receive the supply say from R and Y phase here. So section 2 of the up track and the down track, they receive the supply from Y and B phase, and section 3 of the up track and down track, they receive the supply from B and R phase here. So these are the neutral sections, and each time, you can see the train is coming here on the up track, the pantograph is connected between R and Y phase. But now when it comes near the neutral section here, the driver comes to know that he is passing through the neutral section, is going to pass through the neutral section. So he goes into the coasting mode, where he disconnects the supply, and when it passes through the neutral section here, and when it comes here, he again switches on the supply. So here you can see prior to this, the pantograph was connected, or the electric locomotive was connected to the R and Y phase. Now when it passes through this neutral section, the locomotive gets connected to the Y and B phase. Similarly here when it approaches, so supply is stored here, it comes here, again when the driver approaches and sees that there is a neutral section, he switches off the supply, and when it passes through the neutral section, he switches on the supply again to the electric locomotive, and the change of phase takes place now here. Previously here the locomotive was connected to Y and B phase. Now when it passes through the neutral section, it gets connected to the B and R phase. So that is here the explanation is given for the three-phase supply system if it is used in the overhead equipment. And you have the single-phase transformers. The primary side 132 kV, on the secondary side you have 25 kV, and these are, we are showing the 25 kV overhead lines for the up track and the down track. Thank you.